we need to, is we record, okay. Brendan started recording and then I assume Evan, okay, or we're all set there, okay. So we'll call our meeting to order at 6:16 on September 14th, 2020. And as a reminder, well, first, welcome everyone. And as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. And by participating in the meeting, you're acknowledging your consent to be recorded. And pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, and the governor's March 15th order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Education Subcommittee of the Wachusett Regional School District Committee is being conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. The meeting will be broadcast on HCTV. The recording of the meeting will be broadcast. As a reminder to subcommittee members, please don't use the chat feature unless absolutely necessary. If something's in the chat, we need to read it out loud so it can be in the minutes. And just so the viewing audience knows who's participating in the meeting, I'll announce that now. So we have member Bennett is a member, Evan from HCTV is recording. Not as a participant, he's just recording. Sherry Haber is here, Robert Imber is here, Brendan Keenan and Robert Burlow from the district is here, Megan Keller is also from the district as a observer, and Linda Long-Balil and Laura Kirschenbaum are members and are participating. Okay, so we have the first item on our agenda is the approval of minutes from the August 10th, 2020 meeting. So I will, out of practice, it's been a while. So yeah, so we'll have a motion to accept the minutes, and then we'll, if we get a second, then we can have a moment and then discussion of them. Can I get a second? We have a second, and give you a minute to look over those, and then if anyone wants to discuss anything, we can do that. Okay. Does anyone have anything they want to discuss from the minutes? Okay, all right, seeing none, no one wanting to do that, then we will do a vote, and we have to do a roll call vote, and we have, and you guys liked last names, I noticed, so we'll do by last name. So this is to approve the minutes of August 10th, 2020. So Bennett? Yes. Okay, Haber?
Haber, yes.
Imber?
Imber abstains.
Okay. Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Okay. Long-Balil?
Long-Balil, yes.
And Shapiro is not here. And I vote yes. So those, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses and 1 abstention. So those pass. And the next thing we have on our agenda are policies to review. Do we want to go, Bob Burlow, do we want to go, you and I weren't able to connect about this before, right before. Do we want to go in orders or anything that you need us to address, take out of order on our agenda? Okay.
Nope.
So we have our policies to review related to COVID-19 closure and our district reopening plans. So we were looking through these policies and trying to determine if we need to suspend, modify, update, or create something. And this is you have our list on the agenda. Looks like, do you have a specific one you would like us to look at first?
We can go right in order. The first one that's available to us is 3820, which is observation of educational programs for special needs students.
Okay. Maybe I have a different agenda.
The other one's already dealt with, so
oh, that's right. Thank you. It's right there on there. I'm like, mine's in a different. So we're on P3820. Okay, got it. Sorry. So observation. Okay, 3820. And do you want to, so observation of education programs for special needs students. And do you want to, are you going to project for us like you've done in the past so we can take a look at it? Okay, I'll give you a moment.
Yep. It's coming.
We're almost done with these, which is kind of nice. This section anyway, right?
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is.
A couple left. All right.
So this one's about observation of educational programs for students with special needs. That's the focus of it. There's a couple of lines in here. Here's one of them that I'm highlighting. Observations may be limited during certain periods of the year, for instance, during MCAS testing or the first and last week of school. And the other one is this last sentence here. Observers may be accompanied by an administrator or designee at the discretion of the building principal. I can't highlight principal, but there we go. And I didn't know if those lines meant anything to us, but we certainly can read through this and see if there's anything in here that stands out that we wouldn't be able to facilitate or make work while we're remote or anything like that.
Okay.
So are we just discussing these at this point?
Unless you want to make a motion in the past. Yeah.
Go ahead, Bob.
In the past, we've made a motion to I guess, put the policy on hold for a while. At least that started us into having conversation. And then if we didn't like that, we could always rescind the motion. But yeah, I don't care how we go about it. But.
So I'll make a motion. I would make a motion to suspend the policy of what's the number? I'm sorry.
3820.
3820 during our the portion of our school year in which we are remote.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. So now we can do the discussion piece. So motion to suspend during the portion of the school year we are remote. Okay.
So the reason why I say this is when we are remote, I think that it is incredibly challenging for this policy to be implemented with fidelity. It would basically be adding another Zoom participant potentially during a class session. And I think that's an incredibly challenging thing to accomplish at this particular moment. I would argue that we would also extend this to hybrid simply because adding more people to the building is not feasible at this time. So I'd be open to hearing an argument for that as well. However, given the concerns around special ed services, I can appreciate that parents or designees of a student would want to have access to oversee some component of special ed service.
Yeah. I would make the opposite argument that we need, because we are in the middle of a pandemic and the way we teach is altered in so many ways, that the ability for parents or a designee to observe what's going on in either the physical or virtual classroom is particularly important. So I would keep it as it is. I'd be open to, maybe something about the limiting the number of people who could observe at a given time. But I would imagine that usually it's only one or two people, maybe three at the most, maybe two parents and a professional of some sort. Bob, do you have any insight into that?
Not especially at this time. I mean, if you guys want, I can jump in if we discuss it a little more concretely. There are instances where people want to be observing while we are remote. And it happened when we were starting to enter into the summer, even though we weren't able to offer those services. Some people wanted to observe then. And I mean,
I think I would argue for keeping the policy as is. That would be my preference. Challenging that may be.
Okay, thank you. So we've got two very different ideas out there. Bob, Imber?
Well, I guess my first question is, do we have any guidance in terms of special ed law? Because I'd be concerned with modifying this policy um, and having a legal issue. I also just, in general, I have a problem with waiving the policy, although it would be open if there's something we could do to limit number of participants. But my primary concern would be that we would be inconsistent with state and federal law.
Everything we received from the Department of Ed around special education tells us that we still have to meet the intention of IDEA and meet whatever's in a student's IEP in terms of minutes and those and services. And part of that is for prior to review, a parent does have the right to see what's going on and help inform their questions they might ask as part of the IEP review process. So I would say we have to still allow observations to occur.
So Bob, is there a specific language? I mean, I really have a difficult time suspending an entire policy. And is there specific language that you find would be incredibly difficult to accomplish?
The parts when I read through this, now granted this was a few months back, that I highlighted, hold on one second, I wanted to make sure that we could do this, that this wasn't somehow constraining us or something.
Well, so we certainly have the right to limit observations during certain periods of the year, right?
Yep.
Now, it's not MCAS, but I think one can make a legitimate argument that it could be modified just through the policy because of COVID.
And my question to the group here would be, when we go remote to hybrid, that would fall under this statement here. I want to make sure it still could fall under this, because there might be a week or two where we're saying, look, we're just trying to get the kids acclimated to what's going on in school and the procedures there. This isn't the time to come in and observe how your students, how the behavior plan, for instance, is being implemented. So I'd want to make sure that that could still fall under this, that we would limit them when we transition from remote to hybrid, for instance.
I think you certainly would have the right to do that given the circumstances. I don't see that as an issue personally.
I also wonder, there's some feedback there.
Hold on.
Is it positive feedback or negative?
Preachy. I wonder, in our opening plans, and I'm confusing my plans, I'm sure, but in one of them, I think it might be my the one where I work, that they've limited visitors just in the plan. It says like visitors, there are no visitors to the school, at this time. But I can't remember if that's in our plan that you guys shared with us a couple weeks ago. But I do see, the written or verbal request that is listed there, that they have to make that request through to the district before the program is granted. I think that gives you that leeway that Bob Imber was discussing, where you could say, no, this is not the appropriate time, or we don't have, because part of this might be even the spacing in the classroom. Like, would you be able to accommodate someone in the room based on how many kids are in the room at a particular time? So I think that line about a written or a verbal request, and it has to be granted before they can come in, I think that gives you that leeway. Who else would like to speak about this? So we've heard from four of us now. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak before we vote? Or so the motion on the table, the motion is to suspend the policy. And so far we've heard two people talking about not being in favor of that. And I don't know what others are feeling.
I don't really think it's necessary to suspend it. It seems like everything is in place that gives us options to suspend that time during the certain periods of the year. It doesn't say only during MCAS and the first and last weeks of school. It just gives that as an example. So I don't think that this policy holds us back at all.
All right.
Katrina, this is
Yes,
Laura.
Laura.
I would be happy to withdraw the motion.
Okay.
So could I suggest, just before you withdraw it, there's one other point, sentence here I'd like to draw our attention to. I just can't highlight the word principal without going into the next line.
Yeah.
So it's this full sentence here. Observers may be accompanied by an administrator or designee at the discretion of the building principal. I just want to make sure two things. One is, I'm not sure if we're remote, how that might work. And the other thing is the point that Christina just brought up. If we have a classroom that's at capacity in terms of social distancing, it could be a real challenge to bring in more than one person into that classroom. So I just want to make sure this sentence isn't somehow inaccurate or we're not able to follow this sentence. So I just wanted to bring that in front of everyone's.
Yep, and I hear that. I hear that statement, and that's one of the concerns that I have, Bob, about that statement. But I also heard some arguments about the further up in that paragraph. It says midway up. It says the building principal or designee will respond to a written request to observe within 5 school days of the request. That does not say that the request will be approved. So I think that if as long as there is a request acknowledgement within 5 days and the principal does their best to try to accommodate, but can't perhaps at a particular moment due to capacity issues, that would be a legitimate reason to deny the request.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? So Laura, do you still want to, you just said you would withdraw. Do you still want to withdraw the motion?
I feel comfortable based on our conversation to withdraw the motion.
Okay, all right, thank you. So do we have to vote? She just withdraws. We decided this last time, right? She just withdraws and stuff. We don't have to take action. So we still have this policy. Is there anyone, so in the past, we've done some no action things where we don't take action, or we could take a motion to do modify, update, or create. So if no one makes a motion to modify, update, or create, then we'll assume we are saying, like we've done before, that we're not going to take action on this, that we're going to leave it as is. Okay, so I'm assuming I'm not hearing anything. So that must mean that we're going to take no action on this and we will leave it as it is. And Bob, I would just say if something occurs with difficulty with this policy, like if you are made aware of a situation where it's not working the way that we think it could work based on the language, then just please bring it back to us and we can take a look at it.
Yeah, that's some good advice. I'll keep that in mind for any of the policies that we've already reviewed. Thank you.
Sure. We're here to help, of course, here to serve. So our next one, thank you everyone. So looking at the list, we did the extracurricular activities one. So it looks like we're on, is it this one that is called foreign students?
Yep.
P6170? Okay. So P6170. So if you'd like to give us an introduction again, that would be nice.
Sure. I think when I was reading it, it was essentially this very first sentence in there, and I don't know if that's entirely true this year. And if we can still support that.
Okay.
And
so yeah, go ahead.
That we would take a motion to suspend this, and then we could discuss it. And once again, if that's not what we want to do, we could rescind it.
Okay. All right. So I guess we'll do the same. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to suspend policy P6170 until the end of our crisis.
Thank you, Sherry. So Sherry made the motion to suspend this policy for this period of time, of, what was our language? I forget. Was it 20? For the school year or for the pandemic? I forget, but we can look at that. So
I think we referred to the,
suspend.
I think we referred to the public health emergency.
Oh, public health emergency. Yes, thank you for reminding. And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all right, and then we can have discussion.
Are any foreign students going to want to come to our school district at this point?
That's what I was thinking.
Well, I don't know that answer, but to me, having a statement out there that says we encourage and welcome, when in fact that might not be possible and it might not even be true. So that's why I wanted to bring it up, at least for discussion here.
Okay, all right, Bob Imber?
I would still welcome. I mean, well, I think we may not be able to do it, and the second paragraph certainly says that the participation is based upon the educational benefit to the district, the appropriateness of the program, the availability of space, yada, yada. So, I mean, I think there are lots of outs there, again, but ideally, my hope would be that we would welcome people. It doesn't mean that we can right now. And that's unfortunate, but I don't see why we would change such a policy. So thanks.
Yes, thank you.
I agree with that statement, Bob. I agree. I have some issues around the wording of this policy that not necessarily the intent of the policy, and that has to do with the word foreign in this policy. But I think that's a topic for another discussion.
We can see this is on our list of items that we'll be looking at in the future. And it was last, I think on the bottom, it said 99. So was the last time it was looked at. So we can look at that in the future, Laura. And did someone, you're welcome. Did someone raise their, let's see, chat disappeared on me. Thank you. Anyone else? Linda, go ahead.
Sorry, I was on mute. I would keep the policy as is for the time being.
Okay, anyone else? So we do have a motion on the table to suspend this policy. Do we have anyone else who wants to speak to it before we either take a vote or the maker determines to do something with it, if they would like?
I don't feel strongly and just made my motion to discuss. So if everyone is agreeing, we can remove my motion, withdraw it.
Okay. Right, does anyone, so Sherry's made an offer to withdraw. Does anyone want to say anything before she makes that determination, if she wants to do that? Okay, so Sherry, thank you. I know you were just making the motion to get the discussion started, or that's what we've been doing. So thank you for doing that. And we'll, if you want, if you officially want to withdraw.
Yes, I do.
Okay, so we'll withdraw that motion, and that leaves us back at where we were a few moments ago with, if we would like, we can modify, update, or create, or we can take no action. So I'll give it 10 seconds, and if I don't hear any motion made, then we'll assume we're taking no action on this as well. Okay, so another one we can check off here that we're taking no action on at this time. And our next, and we probably have enough time to be able to maybe do this next one. It is districting, policy 6210, districting of schools and programs.
And most of what I wanted us to be able to review is in this very first sentence here. I just want to make sure that we're able to do what's in that sentence.
Okay. All right.
Those two sentences.
Bob Berlo, is the districting, when it says in the districting of students to schools classes, does it mean like the actual way the district is determining who goes to what? Is the last part that the administration shall assign students to schools and classes? Okay.
Yeah. So that's
Do you
one
have
aspect.
a suggestion?
The second sentence is one aspect, and that's how we're going to have students be placed across the district, the districting. This first sentence is just in terms of how we're utilizing our facilities, and thinking this through, in my head, I was like, well, somebody could potentially make the case that we're not using our facilities in the best way to provide the best possible education. So that's what I just wanted people to be able to discuss.
So do you have a recommendation for us on modifying, suspending, updating, or creating?
We could do any one of those. We could modify or suspend. At least it would let us enter into a discussion. So
This is Linda. I'm okay with leaving it as it is. If we were to change it, I guess maybe the only change I might make would be in the districting of students to schools / classes, the educational program and the advancement and safety of students shall be of prime importance.
so maybe you want to make a motion that we would modify, Linda, to let us get into a discussion of what we might do here.
Sure, I'll make a motion that we modify the second sentence of the first paragraph to read, in the districting of students to schools / classes, the educational program, its advancement, and the safety of the students shall be of prime importance.
Okay,
So I
anyone
would-
want a second?
Second.
Okay, Linda, you can keep talking if you want to start the discussion then.
So I mean, again, I don't feel strongly about this, but I think if we wanted to include if we wanted to note that safety is a particularly important concern right now anyway, I think that would be one way to do it. And that certainly is an important concern right now, so.
Okay. Does anyone else like to speak to the motion?
I think adding safety here is a important criteria in this. I guess my only other question that I have about this policy is usually a policy tries to address a problem, right? So this policy was written first reading in '94 and then amended in '96. And when I first read through this, I'm like, what is the intent of this? What is the intent or purpose of this policy in the first place? I mean, it seems to me that with a regional school district, it would go without saying that this is the reason for being regionalized, is to be able to, economically utilize the school resources to the advancement of students. So I guess that's a big question in my mind, is why this policy exists in the first place when it seems rather redundant. But if we are going to have this policy, that it seems obvious to me that we should have safety as a criteria in it.
I'm not totally up on my regional history, but I'm thinking because this was around when I'm thinking maybe it was when I don't know if Wachusett was always K-12. It might have been like it was a K-8 Holden, K-8 Pack, like in the high school was regional, and then they all joined. I'm thinking maybe that's when that happened, but I don't know. I don't know the dates for sure, but that might be why it came about around that. Again, not sure, but I'm just guessing.
Mm-hmm.
So would anyone else like to speak about the motion on the table, which is to modify and add after advancement, in its advancement, safety, was it of safety of students shall be of prime importance?
Yes, to be very technical, my motion was to add to strike the word "and" after educational program, put a comma, add a comma there so that it reads the educational program, its advancement, and the safety of students. And I'd put a comma after advancement, an Oxford comma. Does that make sense?
I got it.
Yes.
Great.
You
Okay.
have it, Bob. I'm trying, but I'm not really great at like writing it down quickly here.
So that's my motion.
Anyone else like to speak to this?
Well, I would.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, sorry, I missed your hand raised there. Go ahead, Bob Imber.
Okay, so I mean, my greatest concern, not that I'm strongly opposed to Linda's language, but this is really the goal here. Again, I think was districting of students, and that's primarily restricted by, particularly it's an elementary and middle school issue, by the regional agreement. And the goal, again, is to provide the best possible educational opportunity. And one would assume that safety is part of that because we want to keep students safe. By adding that language, my only concern really is tweaking policy for just because we currently have a crisis. And the language may end up staying there for a very long time. And I'm just, again, not sure if it's necessary. I'm not strongly opposed, but I just don't think it's necessary because one can continue to say best possible educational opportunity is an opportunity that's safe. And if we feel that teachers and students are going to be sick, I don't think we need to specifically put that language in. So, I mean, I have mixed feelings, I guess. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, and Laura?
My only thing to add about that is, safety, literally in this particular pandemic, of course, has one particular connotation. But during non-pandemic related times, safety could have a slightly different connotation when you talk about, in addition to health safety, social emotional safety, bullying, harassment, and so on and so forth. So I think that explicitly stating that safety is a factor. What's the harm in explicitly saying that, and where ongoing implications further down the line, not just health related?
I think that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so again, the motion is to modify that second sentence, and Linda just went through. Does anyone need us to go through? We're adding the word safety in there. Bob Berlow has the technical aspects of where it goes in the sentence, but we're adding it after its advancement somewhere, and safety of students shall be of prime importance. So that's a motion, and we'll go ahead and, so it was to modify and add that. So we'll take a roll call vote at this point, unless anyone else wants to add anything. Okay, so Bennett?
Bennett, yes.
Haber?
Haber, yes.
Imber?
Imber, yes.
Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Longbalil?
Longbalil, yes.
And Smith votes yes, so that so we've voted to modify this policy and to add the word or the phrase safety of students in there. So thank you. So at this point, we have just a couple minutes, and we have one more item on here, which is the parent-teacher conferences. I don't think we would have enough time. Do you think we would have enough time, Bob, to do that, or it was short? Do you want us to try to do it? We can. I bet we can do it. Let's do it.
To make a recommendation that we don't change this. I just wanted you to make sure you had an opportunity to read through this to see if there was anything in here that might impact parent-teacher conferences.
So if anyone feels so inclined, you may make a motion. If you don't, to suspend, modify, update, or create. If you don't make a motion, then we would assume that we're all taking no action and we would leave this as is.
I think we should take no action and leave it as it is.
And I'd support that.
Okay, and I'm not hearing anyone, thank you, I'm not hearing anyone making a motion to those 4 items. So we've heard 2 no actions. So I'm assuming that's the will of the committee that we are taking no action on this. Okay, last chance. All right, so we're taking no action. It's hard because I can't see you all, so I'm assuming you're like, okay, yeah, let's go. So we're going to take no action on this, and now we have completed the listing of policies that we were looking at to see if we needed to address them because of our COVID-19 situation. So that's something to be proud of, that we've accomplished that. Yay. Thank you, Bob and Brendan, for your help in getting us through that. And thank you to the committee for thinking about these in relation to our current situation. I think it also has shown us that some of these, it just highlights some of our work that we have ahead of us with some of these policies not being looked at since 96 or 99, 1996, 1999, right? That we have to go back and look at these. So we have a couple minutes before we adjourn. So we'll adjourn at 6:55. But is there anything that you want, we can see on our agenda, no old business, so nothing old there, but new business, we have our district indicators for a future meeting that we'll be talking about. And it looks like something that Bob Imber has brought up at a previous meeting, which was looking at postgraduate outcomes. So those look like our new business items. Are there other items that you all can think of right now that you might want to add to the agenda for a future agenda?
Well, I would like.
Was there something? Yeah.
I had my hand.
Go ahead. Sorry.
That's okay. I would just like to know, given some of the data that we're getting about enrollment for this year, what the staffing implications may be for not only this year, but next year, and what we might have to do about courses and enrollment for those things.
Can I see me? I'm not sure.
So I could update people at the next meeting in terms of where we are at this point in the year,
Yes.
and maybe there might be a time later in the year once we know a little more about the state budget, and maybe before we.
Okay, now they can't see you.
Before
I'm
we
going to move,
forward
Ben,
with
because
that I could update folks as well, because there could be a vote on what we're going to do with the money that we're getting from the state or not getting from the state and implications. So I could do it twice if you'd like.
Okay, so I put that down for just staffing and courses update. And Bob, we can figure out what that looks like when we talk.
Yep.
Like what would be the best for you, for what you would like. Bob Imber, I'm really bad at following this chat here. So I think Bob Imber, you would like to add something.
Yeah, so it's really a question, and I actually was going to bring it up at the full school committee meeting. But, you know, one of the thoughts when looking over that data, so it's related to the question, is whether there's any movement on the part of superintendents and the legislature to talk with the Department of Education and change that October 1st date that they use for collecting data of student enrollment, because clearly it's been affected by COVID, and one would hope that those numbers would rebound, and it would be awful to have, you know, budgets throughout the state dramatically modified because of a blip, hopefully, in the way that they collect and when they collect information. So Bob, do you know of any efforts on the state level to change that October 1st date?
No, I know they've had some conversation initially, and some of it has been what Daryl implied at our last meeting, which is that whole concept of hold harmless and where, to what extent does that kick in and all those type of stuff. So there's been no updates around this specifically.
Okay, well, I mean, personally, and again, I'll talk about this at the full school committee meeting, but I would hope that we would advocate with our legislators and the DOE that they seriously look at modifying that for this particular year because it's an anomaly. Or one would hope it is. Yeah.
Yep.
So, okay, thanks.
Anyone else have anything for new business? Okay. So our next meeting is scheduled for when our next school committee meeting would be, and I don't have it off the top of my head, but we'll do our 6 o'clock meeting before the big meeting. So whenever that next meeting is, which is probably just in a couple weeks. And I guess that is it if we don't have anything else. So we will go ahead and I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
And we had a second, so we'll do our roll call vote. So Bennett,
Yes.
okay, Haber,
Avery, yes.
okay, Imber,
Imber, yes.
Kirschenbaum,
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Longbowale,
Longbowale, yes.
and I vote yes as well. So our meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for your participation. I'll see you in a bit. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Brendan.